Does any intelligent man believe in the existence of devils? The writer of 3 of the Gospels certainly did. John said nothing about Christ having cast out devils, but Matthew and Luke and Mark give many instances. Does any natural man now believe that Christ cast out devils? If his disciples said he did, they were mistaken. If Christ said he did, he was insane or an impostor. If the accounts of casting out devils are false, then the writers were ignorant or dishonest. If they wrote through ignorance, then they were not inspired. If they wrote what they knew to be false, they were not inspired. If what they wrote is untrue, whether they knew it or not, they were not inspired. At that time, it was believed that palsy, epilepsy, deafness, insanity, and many other diseases were caused by devils, that devils took possession of and lived in the bodies of men and women. Christ believed this, taught this belief to others, and pretended to cure diseases by casting out devils out of the sick and insane. We know now, if we know anything, that diseases are not caused by the presence of devils. We know, if we know anything, that devils do not reside in the bodies of men. If Christ said and did what the writers of the 3 Gospels say he said and did, then Christ was mistaken. If he was mistaken, he was certainly not God. And if he was mistaken, certainly he was not inspired. Is it a fact that the devil tried to bribe Christ? Is it a fact that the devil carried Christ to the top of the temple and tried to induce him to leap to the ground? How can these miracles be established? The principles have written nothing, Christ has written nothing, and the devil remains silent. How can we know that the devil tried to bribe Christ? Who wrote the account? We do not know. How did the writer get this information? We do not know. Somebody, some 1700 years ago, said that the devil tried to bribe God, that the devil carried God to the top of the temple and tried to induce him to leap to the earth, and that God was intellectually too keen for the devil. This is all the evidence we have. Is there anything in the literature of the world more perfectly idiotic? Intelligent people no longer believe in witches, wizards, spooks, and devils, and they are perfectly satisfied that every word in the New Testament about casting out devils is utterly false. Can we believe that Christ raised the dead? A widow living in Nain is following the body of her son to the tomb. Christ halts the funeral procession and raises the young man from the dead and gives him back to the arms of his mother. This young man disappears. He is never heard of again. No one takes the slightest interest in the man who returned from the realm of death. Luke is the only one who tells the story. Maybe Matthew, Mark, and John never heard of it or did not believe it and so failed to record it. John says that Lazarus was raised from the dead. Matthew, Mark, and Luke say nothing about it. It was more wonderful than the raising of the widow's son. He had been laid in the tomb for days. He was only on his way to the grave, but Lazarus was actually dead. He had begun to decay. Lazarus did not excite the least interest. No one asked him about the other world. No one inquired of him about their dead friends. When he died the second time, no one said, "He's not afraid. He has traveled that road twice and knows just where he is going." We do not believe in the miracles of Muhammad, and yet they are as well attested as this. We have no confidence in the miracles performed by Joseph Smith, and yet the evidence is far greater, far better. If a man should go about now pretending to raise the dead, pretending to cast out devils, we would regard him as insane. What then can we say of Christ? If we wish to save his reputation, we are compelled to say that he never pretended to raise the dead, that he never claimed to have cast out demons. We must take the ground that these ignorant and impossible things were invented by zealous disciples who sought to deify their leader. In those ignorant days, these falsehoods added to the fame of Christ. But now they put his character in peril and belittle the authors of the Gospels. Can we now believe that water was changed into wine? John tells of this childish miracle and says that the other disciples were present, yet Matthew, Mark, and Luke say nothing about it. Take the miracle of the man cured by the pool of Bethesda. John says that an angel troubled the waters of the pool of Bethesda and that whoever got into the pool first after the waters were troubled was healed. Does anybody now believe that an angel went into the pool and troubled the waters? Does anybody now think that the poor wretch who got in first was healed? Yet the author of the Gospel according to John believed and asserted these absurdities. If he was mistaken about that, he may have been about all the miracles he records. John is the only one who tells about this pool of Bethesda. Possibly the other disciples did not believe the story. How can we account for these pretended miracles? In the days of the disciples, and for many centuries after, the world was filled with the supernatural. Nearly everything that happened was regarded as miraculous. God was the immediate governor of the world. If people were good, God sent seed time and harvest, and if they were bad, he sent flood and hail, frost and famine. If anything wonderful happened, it was exaggerated until it became a miracle. Of the order of events, of the unbroken and unbreakable chain of causes and effects, the people had no knowledge and no thought. A miracle is a badge and a brand of fraud. No miracle ever was performed. No intelligent, honest man ever pretended to perform a miracle and never will. If Christ had wrought the miracles attributed to him, if he had cured the palsied and insane, if he had given hearing to the deaf, vision to the blind, if he had cleansed the leper with a word, and with a touch had given life and feeling to the withered limb, if he had given pulse and motion, warmth and thought to cold and breathless clay, if he had conquered death and rescued from the grave its pallid prey, no word would have been uttered, no hand raised, except in praise and honor. In his presence all heads would have been uncovered, all knees upon the ground. Is it not strange that at the trial of Christ, no one was found to say a word in his favor? No man stood forth and said, I was a leper, and this man cured me with a touch. No woman said, I am the widow of Nain, and this is my son, whom this man raised from the dead. No man said, I was blind, and this man gave me sight. All silent.